Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel, and today's video is going to be a conspiracy theory video. Now recently I have become obsessed with all sorts of conspiracy theories. I've spent many hours just sitting and watching documentaries and YouTube videos and reading up about all these different conspiracy theories, so I thought I'd make a video about one myself. And I chose my favourite one because it's just so interesting and so frustrating, and there's just so many unanswered questions. And the case is of Jonbenet Ramsey. And you've probably heard about this case already because loads of YouTubers have done a video about this. YouTubers like Kendall Ray, Michelle Platty and even Shane Dawson's done a video on it. So this is how big this case is. And I'm going to leave their videos down below just so you can go and see like their take on it and what they think from all the evidence that has been like given. But obviously this video is just like my point of view as well as like telling you the story basically. So I'm going to jump straight into it because it's quite a hefty case. So Jonbenet Ramsey was a 6-year-old pageant queen who lived in her 15-bedroomed mansion with her family. The family consisted of the mum, Pat Ramsey, the dad, Jonbenet Ramsey, the brother, Burke Ramsey, and then Jonbenet. Now, this family was obviously very wealthy, as you can tell by the 15-bedroom mansion. Jonbenet worked for some sort of company but was really high up in it, and they were just a very wealthy family living in Boulder, Colorado. And on December 26th, 1996, unfortunately Jonbenet was found dead in their family home. Now, because this case is big, like I just said, I'm gonna like split it up into different sections so we can kind of get all the information without me overwhelming you loads. So I'm gonna start off with like a timeline and what kind of happened before running up to when she was found. So on December 25th, the family had been around their friend's house doing like Christmas Day activities and stuff, and then according to the family, on the way back from the friend's house, Jonbenet had fallen asleep in the car, and then they just took her into the house and put her to bed like you would any child that had fallen asleep, and apparently she'd stayed asleep through all that, so they just left her there. And then very early hours on December 26th, Patsy Ramsey noticed that her daughter wasn't in bed, so she went looking in the house for her and found a ransom note. So she rang the police straight away and kind of just told what happened, said like, my daughter's missing, there's a ransom note, all that sort of stuff. And there is like a clip of the 911 call, so if I can find it I'll let you have a little listen to that now.
911 emergency. Police. What's going on? 15th Street. What's going on there, ma'am?
We have a kidnapping. Hurry, please.
Explain to me what's going on, okay?
There's a note left and our daughter's gone.
A note was left and your daughter is gone? How old is your daughter?
6 years old. She's gone. 6 years old.
How long ago was it?
I don't know. I just found the note. And my daughter's
Does it say who took her?
What?
Does it say who took her?
I don't know. There's a ransom note here.
It's a ransom note?
It says SBTC. Victory.
And you can really tell that she is really distressed, upset, shocked, panicking. She is really like beside herself on this phone call. So the police were dispatched to the house and the family were interviewed and questions were asked, obviously because that's an interview, but the family were interviewed and the house was searched. But obviously, as I said, this house is huge. It's a mansion, like it's so big. So the police asked whether Jonbenet and his friend, who had come round once he'd heard about like what had happened, to go and search the house for anything that was suspicious, like to see whether there was any sign of forced entry or see whether anything had gone missing. So them two went and did that, and lo and behold found the body of Jonbenet Ramsey in one of the basements, which I believe was a wine cellar at the time. So as soon as Jonbenet seen his daughter on the floor in the basement, he picked her up straight away and brought her up to like the living room or whatever, where everyone was, to show them what he'd found, which created a huge problem because he just tampered with a crime scene. But he said he wasn't really thinking, and he was just beside himself what he could see in front of him, so he just wanted to show the police straight away. But that obviously like caused complications for the family, because now his DNA was all over the body of Jonbenet. But I have to mention that there was no signs of forced entry either on this little little hunt that they were doing. There was no signs at all. There was a smashed window in the basement where Jonbenet was found, but apparently Jonbenet knew about that well, like months and months before this had happened. Thought he lived in a safe neighbourhood, so he didn't get it fixed. Obviously Jonbenet had an autopsy done, and this is what the autopsy showed. It showed that she had a skull fracture, that she'd been sexually assaulted, although rape couldn't be confirmed because there was no semen, but there had definitely been an assault of sexual activity, and she'd been strangled with cord, and it had actually been confirmed that strangulation was the way that Jonbenet had died. However, I found it really interesting that the strangulation didn't actually happen up until about 45 minutes, like between 45 minutes and 2 hours after she'd been hit on the head with something blunt. So obviously the person who did this thought that whatever they hit her over the head with had killed her, and then when they realised that that didn't happen, then they strangled her to finish her off. Okay, so now that I've gone through like the sort of timeline as to what was happening, I'm gonna tell you about the evidence that had been found. So the first thing that was noticed obviously was this ransom note that Patsy had found on the morning of the 26th of December. And this ransom note was asking for $118,000. Now bearing in mind this family is ridiculously rich, and you can tell obviously by the house that they are rich, and the police thought this was quite a small amount of money to ask for from such a wealthy family for the daughter back. So they thought this was a bit strange and got the ransom note checked out, and it was discovered that this ransom note had been written on paper that was found in the family kitchen, and the handwriting also had similarities to Patsy's handwriting. It's also quite interesting to mention that the amount of money asked for was the bonus money that Jonbenet was going to be getting from his work. So whether they just wanted that or someone knew that that's what he was getting, I don't know, whatever. It was just quite interesting that it was linked like that, that someone knew that he was going to get that much. So the handwriting wasn't a perfect match with Patsy's, but obviously had similarities, and on the letter it looked like it had been like changed throughout the letter. So it started in one style of handwriting and then finished in a different style of handwriting. And it's just quite strange that a person would come into a house knowing that they're going to commit a crime, like a murder, sit and write a ransom note in the family home on the family's paper, and then kill Jonbenet anyway. Like, why were they pretending that it was a ransom? So this note is classed as a cover-up. Basically they think someone was trying to cover up the fact that they murdered Jonbenet to give them a little bit more time to get away. The second piece of evidence comes from the duct tape that was on Jonbenet's mouth when the body was found, and there was fibres on that duct tape that also matched Patsy's clothing. And I'm also going to say that Patsy was in the same clothes as she was in the day before when the police arrived on the morning of the 26th of December, which is also a little bit strange because surely she'll have been in bed and she'll have been in her pyjamas. She did say that she just put the clothes back on, but I don't know, I do find that a little bit strange because, but one, why didn't she stay in her pajamas, and then two, why didn't she put something clean on? Like, she'd obviously been in that the day before. And another piece of evidence which I think ties it for me really to the family, or someone who knew the family, is the fact that Jonbenet had undigested pineapple in her stomach, like during the autopsy, so when she was dead, which shows that Jonbenet had obviously ate the pineapple shortly before she was murdered. And the parents deny giving Jonbenet any of this pineapple because she was meant to be sleeping, obviously, but there was a bowl of pineapple in the kitchen with Burke and Patsy's fingerprints on it. So I don't know, it just kind of ties it into the family at least. Now that's kind of like the first time that Burke's been mentioned in like this whole case really, and just a reminder, Burke's the brother. But apparently Burke was sleeping throughout the whole of this time until the police came, which is also quite strange because apparently his mum was running around in a fluster, like screaming, "Where's Jonbenet? Where's Jonbenet?" And he just kind of stayed in bed. Like, he knew this was happening, and then when the police came, he got out of bed, which is strange because why didn't he get out of bed himself and go and help look for Jonbenet? And on the 911 call, the person who answered it also said that she was pretty sure she could hear a third voice on this 911 call, because Patsy Ramsey had thought she'd hung up but she hadn't, and in the family home there was only Burke left in there who it could be. So they think that Burke wasn't sleeping, but not too sure why. They said that he'd been in bed until the police came. So that's pretty much it for the evidence bit really. Like, that's all they've really got. Like I said, it was a heavy blunt object that hit Jonbenet in the head, and police did find a flashlight, like a heavy duty flashlight, but none of the family had like owned it, like no one said it was theirs, so they're not too sure where that came from, but it was found in their house, and they're pretty certain that that was what was used to hit Jonbenet on the head. So now I've gone through all of the evidence, I'm going to go through the suspects, and there are quite a few suspects for this case. Like, there's family suspects, and then there's obviously people who aren't tied to the family as well, because you can't just put all the blame on the family, because imagine if it wasn't them and it, like, all this blame was just put onto them. Like, I think that would be horrible. So obviously the first suspect is Patsy Ramsey. So kind of like a theory behind it being Patsy Ramsey kind of goes like this. So they think that whilst Patsy was cleaning up one of Jonbenet's bedwetting incidents, that she accidentally smashed her daughter's head off of something like a bathtub or a counter or something like that. I don't know how she can accidentally do that, but that's what one of the theories says. And then she strangled the kid to kind of cover herself up and then make it look like a ransom to like cover it all up or whatever. But obviously some things fall through because she wrote on the note in the house and her handwriting and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, so basically that's what they think happened with Patsy Ramsey. They just think that she accidentally hit her daughter's head off something and then tried to cover herself up. And throughout the whole of this case, Patsy Ramsey has been very defensive as to what's happened. I mean, I think anyone would be, because that's your daughter that people are speculating about and there's so many unanswered questions, but it had just been picked up that she was very, very defensive. So that's really all that it says on Patsy Ramsey. Like, there's nothing so like much on her actually doing it, but there's quite a lot of her knowing about it happening and then covering it up or like helping. So the second suspect is the father, who presented with very strange behaviour on the morning of his daughter's death, and apparently one of the cops also overheard him on the phone trying to book plane tickets to Atlanta just hours after Jonbenet's like discoverance like after they found her. So that was all like very strange. Like, why was he trying to get away so quickly with all of his family? But when Jonbenet was asked about this, apparently he just wanted to get away from the house, and they lived in Atlanta for 25 years, so he just wanted to go back to a familiar place, but somewhere that obviously wasn't the house where his daughter was murdered. But it's funny how he didn't mention that the amount that was asked from the ransom note was his Christmas bonus. He just kind of kept that to himself. And again, he was the one who picked his daughter's body up and kind of tampered with the crime scene. So there's kind of like questions as to whether his DNA was already there and he knew exactly what he was doing when he picked up his daughter, just because then his DNA would obviously be on the body regardless, and they couldn't really say that it was there before he picked his daughter up. But again, there's not that much on him doing it either. I feel like the whole theory around the family doing it is like the whole theory around the family doing it together, because obviously there is like bits that fit Patsy, and then there's obviously bits that fit John, and then there's also bits that fit Burke, which brings us to our third suspect. Now, as I said, apparently Burke was meant to have been sleeping throughout the whole of this time, but his fingerprints were found on the bowl, so he obviously must have been awake at some point during the night, having some pineapple with his mother. And the theory that goes against Burke is basically that they think that Burke was sat enjoying some pineapple with his mum, and Jonbenet woke up, came downstairs and pinched a piece of pineapple from Burke's bowl, which then angered Burke, because I think I've read somewhere that he kind of has behavioural issues and all that sort of stuff. So it angered Burke. He grabbed something blunt, which was the flashlight that was nearby, and hit Jonbenet over the head just like out of anger, but didn't realise how heavy it was and knocked the girl out. And then they think that the mother and the father helped cover over that this was Burke and strangled her and put her in the basement, wrote the ransom note and all that sort of stuff. So like I said, I feel like the theory that the family did it is kind of like the whole family did it rather than just one family member and the rest of them not knowing. Like, I feel like if the family did do it, then definitely every single member of the family knows that they did it. Like, I don't think there's any secrets. I think they were all in it together. Or that's what the evidence suggests anyway. So now that I've discussed the suspects within the family, I'm going to talk about some suspects that are out of the family, because like I said before, you can't just blame all on the family because the evidence doesn't add up to them exactly. And now's a good time to mention that in Jonbenet's underwear there was some unidentified DNA that they couldn't get a match for, and it definitely wasn't one of the DNAs from the family members. So someone else has definitely touched Jonbenet. And the first suspect that they had is Gary Oliver, and he is a known sex offender in Boulder, Colorado. And when Jonbenet was found strangled, it also looked like sexual assault. So this convicted paedophile came straight to their attention because obviously he was a paedophile and was a sex offender. And the reason why there's some strong evidence towards Gary is, no, not Gary. What's he called? Oh yeah, Gary. So the reason why there's some evidence that is quite strong towards Gary is because the knots that were tied around Jonbenet's neck are similar to knots that Gary had used to strangle his own mother. So he'd used the form of strangulation before to try and kill someone, and he was a sex offender, and there was obviously like questionable sexual assault in this case, so that's why he was here. But he was cleared by DNA testing and nothing else really came of that. he was just kind of someone who had come to mind. Another suspect is a school teacher, John Mark Carr, who randomly confessed to this killing, but when it was further investigated it just seemed to be all made up, and this man was very, very obsessed with the case and wanted to be involved. But he did describe in some awful ways how the killing happened, which obviously made him a suspect, but he was cleared of DNA. And another suspect that it could be is the family housekeeper. She carried a key to the home, so obviously she could get into the house, and there was no sign of forced entry, which kind of makes sense because she could get in easy. And she was very vocal about the fact that she thought Patsy Ramsey had killed her daughter. But apparently this lady was struggling for money, which would make sense with the fact that she's asked for money in the ransom letter. But all the evidence towards her in this case is just circumstantial, and she has never really been accused of doing the crime. And the last suspect outside of the family was the town Santa Bill, and apparently he was a pedophile, a known pedophile, but he was Santa, and there had been some sort of dispute between the family and him just before her death. But he's also been cleared because he had just had heart surgery, and there was no way he would ever be able to commit a murder and get away with it just after having heart surgery. So really all of the suspects outside of the family are all just circumstantial, and I feel like the cops were clutching at straws a little bit. But I'm now going to add the fact that the family have also been cleared but for the DNA in the house from 2008. So that's about it for the full case. I mean, like I said, it's quite confusing, but it's rather straightforward as well. And then you think it's obvious who did it, but then like no evidence leads back to a single person at all. But in my opinion, I do believe the family had something to do with it. I do think it could have been an accidental death. I quite believe the one about Burke, because it kind of makes sense, because then his parents would obviously want to cover for him because that's their son. Like, they wouldn't want to lose two children because obviously they'd lost Jonbenet. But at the same time, I also kind of don't hope it was to do with the family, because they would have thought they were covering up their murder but actually murdering their child by strangling her. So, and I just think that's awful. I think that would be an awful thing to find out if the family actually did that. So that's what I think. But like I said, there's not enough evidence, which I think is bizarre, because there was so much DNA found on Jonbenet's body, yet they can't name one person who did it, or a group of people. But I definitely do think that the family all know together if the family did it, like 100%. No, I'm not saying that they did do it, because it's awful to accuse people, but that would be my take on things. Okay, so my battery ran out, but that is the end of the video. If you did enjoy it, then please make sure to give it a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button down below. I'd love it if you did. Also, put in the comments if you want me to do any other conspiracy theory videos, and I will do them. I'm all for them, really. I absolutely love them. Like I said, I'm obsessed. So if you want me to do any of them, then I will. I probably will do a couple anyway, but if there's any specific ones that you want me to do, then just let me know and I will be sure to look into them. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in my next one. Bye!